Welcome to a very icy episode number 55 of the Between Two Brands podcast. Double nickels, and I'm still your host, Bill Petrie. Happy you're here. I think we got a fun show for you today, but first, as always, let's go ahead and pay the rent, shall we? In 2026, your clients are looking for more than just a product with their logo on it. They're looking for rock solid merchandise solutions that are more than just innovative. They're going to be used for months and years to come. Now, let me introduce you, or many cases, hopefully reintroduce you to the good folks over at Coaster Stone. They are the original manufacturer of the absorbent stone coaster, and they have unmatched quality, durability, and gorgeous edge-to-edge decorating that allows your creative designs to come to life in full, vibrant, full-color detail. Now, since 1983, Coaster Stone has set the standard when it comes to delivering a retail-inspired experience to any client function. Instead of just plain packaging, I think we're all pretty tired of that. How about packaging options that are customizable and retail-inspired? Coaster Stone delivers value far beyond the product itself. Also, did you know that they manufacture their pinback buttons right here in the United States of America? Well, they do, and they are the ideal, cost-effective, and fun promotional piece around. Now, with that combination of stone cold quality, striking decoration, cost per impression, and unmatched value, David Glenn and his team are ready to help you make a rock solid impression with your clients. Email them at promo@coasterstone.com and start your next project today. You're not going to be sorry you did. Now, I mentioned at the top of the podcast, I feel like half the country is frozen solid right now. Where I live in Franklin, Tennessee, which is about 10 miles south of Nashville, man, we got hit hard. As with most winter weather forecasts leading up to the weekend, I assumed they were overblowing it. They usually do, and they usually miss the mark by a lot. Figure it was going to be a little slushy, a little snowy. Not the case. We ended up getting about 3 inches of snow on Saturday morning, and that was followed by a little bit of sleet and then about an inch and a half of freezing rain. Now, the difference between sleet and freezing rain, for those of you who didn't take a 1-hour meteorology class at Texas A&M like yours truly, sleet are those little ice pellets that kind of bounce off surfaces. It's almost like snow, but they're in pellet form. It is a problem for the roads and overpasses, things like that, but really doesn't pose an issue for trees and power lines. Freezing rain, on the other hand, that's a problem because that freezes on contact. It's very cold water, freezes on contact. And I shared on my personal Facebook page, we have every tree in our area is covered with at least 3/4 of an inch of ice, and power lines too. Now, thankfully, I live in a subdivision where the power lines are underground, so haven't had a power issue, which is great. I'm much more fortunate than a lot of people in my area because trees have been collapsing in my neighborhood all across Middle Tennessee, snapping power lines. It's been a mess. We're not the only ones dealing with it here in the promotional products industry. PAPA, the Philadelphia Area Promotional Products Association, SAGNY, New York, and NEPA, the New England Promotional Products Association, all had to reschedule their big bake sale of the year, their trade show, for a couple weeks. And hopefully that doesn't impact the revenue that those regional organizations need from those shows. But that's a big deal. We joke about being in the South and we can't handle the snow. And for the most part, you're right. There's a little bit of a panic button. It doesn't happen often enough where people would invest in the infrastructure. Government wouldn't do that. But for those of you laughing at us, ice is no joke. Ice is absolutely no joke. And I think people across the Northeast are experiencing that too. But what really struck me about the past week is being forced to work back home. My office, even if I could get to it, was closed. They said, we can't support anybody there. We don't even know if we have electricity. It was kind of a mess. And working from home, after having worked from home for a long time during the pandemic and then moving away from working at home, it was really interesting for me. And I wonder if you guys felt the same thing. Working from home, I was scared I'm not going to be as productive. I'm not going to be as focused as I am. And I actually found myself just as much, if not more focused because I'd hid in here in my office here at home and I just worked. That's all I did. I didn't screw around. I did not that I screw around at the office, but I didn't have any distractions and I didn't drive anywhere. So I didn't lose time doing that. I just worked. That caused me to realize something else. Because our world is so interconnected now, because the world has shrunk so much, we can work from anywhere. Man, if you're not in the school system, there is no such thing as a snow day anymore. I remember as a kid when you see the forecast or maybe see some snow and wait for that call the next morning. Are they going to cancel school? And it would be awesome when they did. Work, man, unless my internet goes out, I believe I'm expected to work. And I think everybody else is like that too. And so robs a little bit of that joy of the winter weather that you could get that snow day. Kind of miss that. Kind of bummed by that. So even if you work in an office, you're expected to work remotely. So kind of a good thing that there's always productivity, but kind of a bad thing you can't just kind of enjoy the day for what it is. And I thought that was a little interesting. So I'd love to hear from you. How did you handle the snow, the ice, depending on where you lived? And what routine change helped you the most? Like the thing that helped me the most, I just came in here and just worked. I just focused on work, and it was actually great. Getting a little stir crazy. I am going to the office today just to get out of the house a little bit, but I want to hear from you. All right, before we get to my guest today, of course, we have a good guest, by the way. But before we get to her, I want to pay one more little piece of the rent. Hey, do you know what season it is? That's right. That's right. You guessed it. Not only is it winter, it's business valuation season. Now, perhaps you don't know what your company's worth. Maybe it's been a few years since your last valuation and you need a benchmark to see if you're growing. Maybe you want to see if it's time to sell your business. Now, regardless of the reason, Jamie Watson and the experts at Certified Marketing Consultants, they have extensive research in the world of branded merchandise and the financial knowledge necessary to provide a fact-based valuation of your organization. All you need to do is email them at info@certifiedmarketing.com for a confidential discussion today. All right, that's enough of my snowmageddon yakking. Let's go ahead and bring on our guest. Hey, my first guest today, my only guest. I always say first guest, but I only have one guest. That's really poor podcasting from Dmytriw. My guest today absolutely doesn't need an introduction, but I like to waste people's time. So I'm going to waste her time, my time, and more importantly, your time by doing it anyway. Like most of us, she didn't plan on joining the branded merchandise industry, but she thanks those pesky pandemic layoffs for landing here. Thrown into both unprecedented time and circumstances, she built a thriving book of business while marketing budgets everywhere were frozen, much like most of the country right now. And that's pretty incredible. Armed with creativity and sheer determination, she landed a multi-million-dollar client in her first year. I love that. And continues to hunt whales as the VP of marketing for Team SCG. Her approach isn't just to sell swag. Thankfully, that's a good thing. Instead, she sees herself as a brand connoisseur. I love the word connoisseur. Someone who dives deep into a brand's essence before suggesting a single product. We're going to talk a little bit about that. When she's not crafting fabulous campaigns, you'll find her chronicling her merch moments on her Instagram. You can find her at MerchGirly, pulling inspiration from the wellness, live event, hospitality, and luxury brand retail worlds. Her fresh perspective has earned her a spot as a top 10 influencer on PPAI's Online 18 and a feature in the Marketing Millennials newsletter and podcast, cementing her status as someone to watch in the promotional products industry. Hell, she should be running this podcast, not me. Please join me in welcoming the merch girlie herself, Savannah, let's not butcher her last name, Dmytriw.
Crushed it, Bill. Crushed it. Oh my gosh. Honestly, I will say that is probably the strongest intro I've ever received. So hats off to you. Nailed the last name. And I mean, I think that we're off to a great start here. Honestly, we could be done with our work, I think.
I think we could not call it a day now, have this be a 4-minute podcast where it's mostly me talking. That would please me probably anyway, kidding aside. Now, I want to ask you right off the bat, getting into this industry, everybody has a weird story of getting into this industry because unless you're a legacy, unless your family runs a business, no one plans to get in the branded merchandise industry. So talk through not, and you don't have to go through the unpleasant part of the layoff. We've all been part of that or had, issues during that. But why this industry? Why?
So here's the thing, Bill. I was never anybody that like knew what they wanted to do. It's funny because I have a lot of friends that were like, or that are doctors and lawyers, and literally my best friend in sixth grade turned around to me in seventh period and said, like, I want to be a pediatric oncologist. And lo and behold, she's being that. Like, she is that. And like, I've been
Wow.
surrounded, it's insane. But like, I've been surrounded by that type of energy from a very young age. And I knew that I never had that, which was, I mean, it
Yeah.
was kind of daunting and intimidating being like, oh, I'm surrounded by people that know exactly what they want to do, exactly who they want to become. And then, I mean, they went out and they grabbed the bull by the horns and did that. With that, I got out of college and I did a bunch of different things. And all of these things, like, I was a private events manager for Tony Roma's in Miami Beach. So I
Not
sold.
Tony Romo, the quarterback. Tony Romo's the Rib Shack.
Exactly. And if you know anything about Miami, like especially nowadays, it's not the biggest like rib destination. It was just a job that I could land.
Right.
And then I ended up like working in tech sales. And then I ended up working as a spin studio manager in Miami Beach with all the rich mom energy down there. And then I ended up selling fundraisers to high school athletic programs. And then I ended up at the Ritz-Carlton South Beach, which was actually the first place that I ever ended up working at. And keep in mind, I was making literally $18 an hour while working there. Where I felt like empowered and inspired by what I was doing. I was selling corporate events. Well, I was a sales coordinator, and by that I mean like just very administrative.
Right.
But like nonetheless, like it was a very like inspiring atmosphere to be a part of, as well as something that like lit a bit of like a fire in me. But obviously COVID happened and like that whole hospitality industry just got wiped out.
Sure. Decimated for a few years.
Well, exactly. So I was kind of, I had nothing really going on, nothing lined up. I didn't have this grand plan, had a very like eclectic background. And, I was like, well, what the heck am I going to do now? I've always had faith that like, I'll figure it out. Like I'm a cat.
Things work out.
But, it was like, what is this next move? Lo and behold, my cousin was a client, is like a buyer from the company, SCG that I work now. And he called me and he's like, hey, like I work with this company. They sell me promotional products and like they're a great company to work for, it appears like they're operating, they're flying high during the pandemic. So that probably speaks to something that they have going on there. Do you want me to get you like in touch with them? And I was like, wait, so you're saying that they sell promotional products. What exactly does that mean?
Right.
He's like, well, they sell me my pens, my uniforms. And I'm like, you know what, whatever. I know I can sell stuff.
Sure.
So lo and behold, connected the dots. They were able to remain open and operating during the pandemic, which was a big testament to like their success and who they are and how they treat their team. And I realized quickly thereafter was like, you're not in the business of selling promotional products. You're in the business of selling quite literally whatever a brand could need to elevate their whole being. And
you're selling a connection, and just branded merchandise is a vehicle for it.
Exactly. And here's the thing is like, with all of my string of crazy job history, I realized like, what people got really excited about was the merch, was the product, was the giveaways at the events. And that's where I was able to connect a lot of dots and be able to say like, okay, no, I'm not just cold calling, this lawn company and asking if they want t-shirts for their team. I'm asking, like, I'm calling these large programs in which I know have budgets to hold events at the Ritz-Carlton that have loyalty programs, that have all these things. And, I'm going to get hung up on 1,000,001 times. However, like it was one of those things that then, on 1,000,002,
you landed. Yeah. Well, and I always tell people who get in this industry and they find, or, especially on the distributor side, and it's so hard. And Sales is hard. You get a lot of rejection, just like you were saying, but you're not selling ball bearings and you're not selling wing nuts. You're selling little decorated nuggets of awesomeness that people freaking love. And there is so much joy to that.
No, 1,000%. And like I had that like sales history in the
Hmm.
past where like I was successful in my own way, but I remember always thinking to myself, like, dang, I would love if I could sell something that I'm actually passionate about. And then I
Right.
was like, hold on, light bulb. This is something that I can be passionate about because it can be
Sure.
anything that I want it to be.
Well, and don't you find, because I'm listening to your history and you bounced around a couple jobs, I had the same thing. I sold temporary help. Sorry, ladies, he's taken. The temporary help. I sold corporate long distance when that was a thing. I sold restoration services. Am I interesting anybody already? But I think that varied background helped me when I did get into the promotional products industry. Do you find that the same for you?
1,000%. Because if you can sell something boring, um, if you can be successful selling something boring, selling
Yeah,
something interesting and that you can get lit up about, selling an idea, a
yeah,
concept that aligns with somebody's brand that they're already passionate about. I mean, that's a cakewalk
yeah.
in my mind. I mean, I literally at one point I was going door to door in Little Havana, Miami,
Hmm.
asking restaurants to be a part of my coupon fundraiser that I was selling to the local baseball team. And
Yeah.
I let me tell you, Bill, I don't speak Spanish, okay? Like I do a little
Right.
bit, but not enough to be able to put together a coupon. And that's what I was working against. And hey, I put that coupon together. Lo and behold, I brought my brother-in-law out with me and we went door to door and we got the thing done. But like that taught me so much grit. And
Yeah.
like it's one of those things of like if you put something in front of me, I will figure out how to get it done. But then if you
Yeah.
put something in front of me that I'm excited about, it's all over from there.
Yeah. Totally get that. And, it's funny. My first job out of school when I graduated 1,000 years ago, graduated in college, was selling temporary help. I mentioned that. It was a company called Sun Temporary, as in the sun is coming up this morning. In their tagline, which is so deliciously awful, a powerful source has emerged. And I had to wear, this is 1992, I had to wear a suit every day. And this is in Dallas. I grew up in Dallas. Wear a suit every day. I had a hard side attache case, like I was some sort of Wall Street tycoon. I had no idea what I was doing.
You gotta
And the
look the
other,
part.
and in the other hand, I had a bag, like a grocery store, paper grocery store bag full of Sun Chips. Remember Sun Chips?
Of course.
And I was my job was to make 30 cold calls a day. So I just pick a building and make cold calls. And that teaches you like you're talking about grit and determination and all that. So I completely
That
get,
puts hair on your chest and it makes you realize like
yeah.
if you can set your mind to do that, you can literally do anything.
Yeah. So you've been in the industry for 5, 6 years now, 4 or 5 years, whatever. Terrible with math. Again, I went to Texas A&M University, so don't ask me to math. Tell me about Merch Girly, and I want to say that in the most radio voice I can. Merch Girly. Tell me about Merch Girly. I want to know the purpose, why you launched it. What do you think the future is of Merch Girly?
Okay,
Because I'm
so
fascinated.
well, thank you so much. I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. And then I'm fascinated by her as well. So here's the thing is okay, I landed that whale of a client. My
Hmm.
first year, I ended up doing over $3.5 million in revenue with that client the first year. And keep in mind again, this was off of a cold call. And it was a very like organic, like snowball effect as to how it all came to be, how it was
Yeah.
serviced. Luckily, by the grace of God, I worked for a company that has been in the business for over 35 years.
Knew what to
They,
do.
like, they knew what to do exactly. They're like, if you build it, they will
Yeah, there's
come.
a lot of companies that are like the dog chasing the car, and the dog gets the car, and now what? Has no idea what to do. So it's very good you're with SCG to let you
Well,
help you with that.
exactly. And I'm so grateful for, and we continue to like build the boat as we go in so many different ways, but it was one of those things that like I felt support bringing this in and it was amazing. Um however, at the end of that first year, the I guess procurement department of that company did an audit on their vendors and they're like, "How the heck did we spend over $3 million with this vendor that
Hmm.
has not been formally vetted, has not like we know nothing about that." So then, they obviously, at that point, we formed like a very, very deep partnership. I have, had great relationships with these people. I became the girl that could get the job done,
Right.
for quite literally anything that they would need.
Okay.
But with that came a buying freeze so they could properly vet us. So
Hmm.
I went from drinking out of a fire hose, learning literally at light speed, and
Sure.
just being completely overwhelmed, overstimulated. At that point, like my cold calling stopped, my business development efforts stopped outside of like this one account, to then crickets, because it's a financial institution. They trusted us with a lot of very sensitive data. And so with that then came a whole bunch of tech audits and
Right.
like data management audits, and just like a whole bunch of like, just it was insane. Like you would think that we're
Hmm.
selling like ATMs rather
Right.
than t-shirts, but like, it was what needed to be done to like actually become like a preferred vendor in their system. But with that, I found a lot of time on my hands again. And I'm like, okay, do I really want to be cold calling once more? Do I want to be, doing that same grind in the way in which I once did it? Not really. And
Nope.
then,
And
you
you're
look.
and you're saying you don't have to, and you figure that out.
Well, no, exactly. And like, and so I was like, how can I innovate here? Like, I look to my left and my right. I listen to a lot of like podcasts, and I listen to a lot of like adjacent industries to us, and
Hmm.
like kind of see how they're doing it. I'm like, wait, hold on. So you're telling me that some people don't have to pick up the phone whatsoever. They build they build a funnel just by posting online.
Hmm.
Yeah, sign me up for that. Like if
Love
I'm
that.
if I have to put myself out there, then sure. Like I put myself out there in so many other ways. I will say getting in front of a camera was like the most daunting thing for me. Like if you ask any of like my close personal friends, like I'm not the person that's like whipping out the camera at the dinner table to like take a
Right.
picture. Like in my personal life, that's not me whatsoever. So I had to overcome that, but it was one of those things where I was like, if that's what I have to do to push myself to be that person, then like, then that's what I'm going to have to do. So that's where I started
Hmm.
doing just that. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about my perspective. Let's talk about my thoughts. And, this is going to be very clunky. And honestly, like, to be honest, like it still is in many ways for me, very clunky and not necessarily the most like natural thing in which I do.
But
But
doesn't it
it,
make it more authentic, though? I mean, we talked real quick before we started recording here. People know I've been doing a podcast every week for 9 years. I don't edit it.
yeah.
Super lazy. No, let's be clear. More importantly, I just like the natural flow of it. I like just the conversation because that those mistakes, that authenticity, that little bit of rawness, that's what makes things interesting.
And I think too is like like to your point is like it has like a level of relatability
Mm.
where right now like a lot of the conversations that I'm having, like people now reach out to me, they're like, how do I start doing this, like how do I, and I mean, hey,
What
I'm
do you tell
still
them?
very like, well, I tell them like you just got to do it. Like
Absolutely.
the people are interested in like watching you grow, watching you become better,
Yep.
watching you, stumble a little bit here and there, but recover and continue to keep, when you keep standing up after you fall,
Yeah.
like that just goes to
Yep.
show who you are as a person,
Yeah.
as well as, it's documenting a journey in which, it's not anything worth having is like not linear, it's not a linear path to success.
No.
So like people identify with the realness and with the relatability. Like some of my stuff is like a little bit more edited than others, but like I try
Sure.
to like hop on there and also show like the really real parts, like, and not say, yeah, you just come on here and you film every day. Like honestly,
Right.
sometimes I hate it. Like I don't love to do it, but it's something that like I've gotten results from, as well as like a big piece of it now too is the way in which I've been able to connect with people within our industry and inspire them and hear their stories about like, wow, like I really connect with your perspective. Like that's so meaningful to me, along with, the ROI in which I've been able to
Yeah.
attract.
No, I love that. Everybody sees the finished product, even when it's authentic. I pride myself on being the same guy. We're talking here. If I'm standing in front of people speaking or I'm at a bar having a drink, same guy. It might be a different version though. And that's, let's be honest, we shape the narrative we want out there. But I try to get, and I think you do as well, try to be as authentic as possible, because I share very openly my failures when I've screwed up, and because it makes me human, it makes me more relatable. And like you, building, the marketing I do for my company, Brandivate, I don't market. I do podcasts, do a blog, a couple other fun things. That's it. And I built that persona so people could come to me, because just like you, I don't like cold calling. I've given hundreds of talks in front of distributors, and I'll say, hey, how many of you love cold calling? And the people raise their hands. I say, now I know who the liars are in the room, because no one likes it. I don't care what you say. It's terrible. No one would prefer a cold call to a warm lead. And when people come to you, they're immediately interested and engaged. They may not buy from you, but at least you're going to have a conversation that has the opportunity to turn into something.
Exactly. And also when you're doing something like this and you're putting yourself out there, people, if you resonate with them and if they already like go forth and reach out to you, it means that they identify with something that you said, with your
Yeah.
perspective, with the way that you talk, which is why I really like play up the whole like girly twirly thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because like that's kind of just how I talk. That's just kind of who I
That's
am. And like
great.
here's the thing is like I've been in other industries before, like when I was selling fundraisers to high school athletic programs, where I've had to like dull down myself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a very like masculine environment. And, obviously you look at me and I'm not, I didn't look like any of the other reps out there.
Yeah.
And obviously that has its edge as well. But also like you can't go into that and like talk the way that you want to talk, or like it was a very different situation. So when it like came to me developing like my personal brand and my personal
Mm-hmm.
experience within this industry, I was like, no, this is my time and my opportunity to be like who I am, but also like lean into it. Like and that's where people get like so excited, where it's almost like a little like dramatic, like a dramatized
Mm-hmm.
version of me.
Yeah.
But also it's me being like able to be really
It,
enthused about the things that like get me
yeah.
excited.
100%. I mean, again, I just spoke at Expo 2 weeks ago in front of like, I don't know, a couple hundred, 300, 400 people, whatever it was. That's an amped up. It's me, but it is amped up. I don't talk that loud or that expressively when I'm just hanging out. It's still me. So I like what you're saying a lot, because you have to create a persona that is certainly authentic, but it's almost authentic adjacent a little bit. It has to be an amplified version a little bit, or what you aspire to be. If you could be your own superhero, for lack of a better term. I also love what you said about failure. I've failed so many times, and the fun is the creating. The fun is creating, and okay, I screwed up there. Let's fix that here and all that. That's fun. That's good stuff.
No, it's super fun. And to your point of like being like becoming your own superhero, it's kind of like becoming the version of yourself, even when you go
You want to
into a
be.
meeting,
Yep.
like when you have to have like a tough conversation, when you have to, do things that are hard, what version of yourself is showing up for that? And
Yeah.
that's who you need to like embody in your content, in your personal brand, because, um, you know, share, share the failures, of course, but like that's how you show up as your best self, and that's how you continue to show up on days where maybe you're not feeling your best, but like being able to like shift gears into this like higher version of yourself, it takes a
Yeah.
lot of energy.
It
However,
does.
like it is very rewarding, and people definitely identify with it.
It is. You have to know when to turn that on. And, I do, well, like I said, I write a blog every week too, just part of my marketing, part of it, but it's also very cathartic. I love to write. And I
Yeah.
do one every year that I've done, I think, for the past 10 years or so. It's the beginning of the year. It's the last blog I write of the year, and it's called Introspective Candor. And I ask myself very publicly, very hard questions. I share the goals, what I succeeded, what I failed at, what I, all the ways I can improve so I can become a better version of myself. I'll never get to where I want to be, but I not only is it an important thing to ask those type of questions, but if you're comfortable sharing those publicly, because so many other people, they see that finished product. You see that, like a podcast like this, where I feel like I'm pretty good at it. But man, if you listen to my first podcast, don't. High voice, fast talk, terrible, just awful. But you get better at it. And to share those type of failures, I think makes everybody more relatable, because nobody's perfect. I want to ask you about the co-creative exchange. Tell me about that, because honestly, it's kind of taken a good portion of the industry by storm, I'd say, over the last 12 to 18 months. And I want to learn more about that, especially for certainly for me, because my podcast, but for the six people who end up listening to this, I'd like them to learn too.
So, okay. The like co-creative exchange started like it was never like this like grand idea to be like, we're gonna create a community for the industry. It was showing up online constantly and engaging with the same people over and over again and hyping each other up and realizing like there's so much comfort and support in having like your people online, especially within the industry. Like there are people online that like aren't your mom or your husband or your sister or whatever, that like are engaging with your stuff,
Mhm.
as well as like understand the perspective of like what you're doing within the industry. It's funny like trying to like explain what you do to anybody outside of it is always like
I get it though.
it's interesting. But um there was this group of predominantly women who showed up for each other in ways that like we had never met before. We had never
Yeah.
had like conversations outside of the internet before. And then my good friend Natalie O'Leary, which
Hmm.
an absolute queen, um asked if a group of us wanted to speak on a panel about like personal branding and all these things. And so with that, it kind of like took another layer of, being able to connect with these people. And we're like, wait, hold on, like we should go meet up in Vegas together. And, like let's grab a drink in Vegas. And then it like shortly thereafter, like Nat and I were talking, there was so much interest around that, even with just like the eight girls that like, that we originally like sat on that panel with. We were like, should we extend this to the other people that like are engaging with our stuff on the regular? Like, maybe there's something there. And so we threw an invite out, and probably like 25 people showed up. It was like so um it was not like organized, structured, or anything like that. It was like, hey, want to meet up for drinks? And these people showed up. They were so excited to meet and hang out in real life and talk about what we do. And we all already felt like friends. And then it was like, we want more of this. How do we create more of this? And that's where we were like, okay, we need to put together some sort of community or commonplace,
Hmm.
or whatever it is to bring these people together on a more regular basis. There's a bunch of different communities within our industry, and there's a lot of great ones out there, but there wasn't that one group that was like really engaged online, as well as you know in between in between these live events, being able to like have a group of people and like kind of like a common space where you're able to connect and support. Like that's what social media is. You don't feel like there's that lull in between of like, oh hey, like haven't seen you in 6 months, like what have you been
Right.
doing? Like I tune into your stuff every day. I like your stuff every day. I'm hyping you up every day. So like leaning into that, we formed a board, and then we figured out like how to make it a bit more structured. And here's the
Hmm.
thing, like there has been a lot of interest, and people are really excited about it because we're creating something that exists in adjacent worlds, but like hasn't existed within our world.
Right. You're
And
being very intentional about it too, because I went on the website and you have an application. If people want to, if they feel, I think you prop my guess, you can tell me if I'm wrong. But you either are invited in or you apply. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I understand.
yeah, exactly. So either you're invited or you apply. We have a few different pillars in which we
Sure.
that boxes that need to be checked in order to be like approved or
Hmm.
considered. A lot of it really just revolves around like content creation. Not necessarily that you have to be like at a place where you're posting every day, but like
Right.
you're you're engaging, you're supporting, like, and you want to get to a place where you can contribute to the conversation of building out our industry and promoting it to a larger audience online. You look at so many other like elements of the marketing mix, and
Hmm.
they're promoted from the freaking rooftops. They
Right.
have their own algorithms, they have their own brand deals, they have their own like very, very established following. But for whatever reason, that hasn't happened for our industry.
Well,
Um,
we've had an inferiority complex for coming on to 5 decades now.
but here's the thing, like
It's changing, but
we're the coolest part of the marketing mix. Like
we're the most
people
fun part for sure.
like we're the most exciting part. People
Yeah.
are excited to show off our stuff, and these brands are getting so much credit for, yes, of course they contribute, I mean, they pay for it, but like they contribute to like the ideation and whatnot, but like there's a big piece that is missing about
Mm-hmm.
that story, and that's us. And so I've seen this massive opportunity to be able to say, okay, let's band together, let's build out this algorithm. And that's like a piece of the community is like, let's hype each other up. Let's comment. And it sounds silly to be like, oh yeah, just like each other's posts, like just repost things. But like,
I think
that's how you do it, you know?
it's not silly. Look, I was part of Promo Kitchen on the as a chef on the board for 10 years, and what you're doing with CCX, a lot of parallels to Promo Kitchen, different pillars, and that's good, by the way. That's
Yeah.
not a criticism or anything of that nature, but it reminds me a lot of that. So I think it's really, really cool what you guys have done. I have one
Well,
more question. Oh, good. You
oh
want to
no,
say
no,
something?
it's funny because we talked to Mark Graham like at first
Mhm.
because since there was so much interest in what was going on, we were like, who could we turn to that like
Mark's the
has a
one.
a general understanding of the industry as well as community. And Stephanie Hinkle, who's on our
Mhm.
board, was like, oh well, Mark was my mentor at Promo Kitchen, and there's so many there. I mean, there's so much in common with Promo Kitchen that we were able to say, okay, Mark, this is what we have going on. And he was like, well, love what you're doing. Form your board, put this together. And then, he gave us some like actionable next steps. As well as like Common Skew was our
Mhm.
first sponsorship.
Mhm.
And we're like, wait, hold on. Like people want to get in on this, and then
Yep.
that's kind of where it's all snowballed since, is there is like so much interest and people wanting to like essentially buy into it and support it so we can amplify it and take it to a much bigger heights.
Oh, I love it. And I look forward to see where it's going. I have one more question than anything you want to talk about before we wrap
Okay.
up. I love that you came in from outside the industry. You had experiences, actual work experiences outside the industry. One thing, what would you like changed about this industry? One thing.
So I think that we're working to change it, but I think that like like there's a lot of like a very competitive mindset, which obviously you need to be. Hey, I'm a fierce competitor in my own way, but a competitive mindset from a place of scarcity rather than
Yeah.
abundance, which I think like competition from an abundance mindset is collaboration, which
Yeah.
is what we're seeking to create with
Mhm.
CCX and with conversations like these. Is there's so much room at the table that you don't have to hold your book of business so close to your
Yeah.
chest. You don't have to not talk about the projects that you're doing. By talking about, I mean, I literally remember when I first started and I would be in a room with people that have been doing what I was seeking to do for quite some time, and hearing the scale of the projects in which they were doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like at first instincts like, oh wow, that's kind of daunting. But then it was like, hold on, reframe here. If they're doing it, then I can do it too. So let
Yeah.
me learn from them and let me have conversations with them. And like that's where we all grow. That's where we all elevate is by having more conversations, being more open, engaging with each other, and not necessarily thinking like, oh, like her win is my loss. No,
Yeah.
it's if she's winning, then that means that I can figure out a way to win too. If she's
Right.
done it, then that means that I can do it. And I mean, that's where I want to see this industry continue to go and grow, is just more of a collaborative mindset. And I think that that's where we'll be able to just see more magic come to life, as well as
Agreed.
just like there's just more opportunity that comes from
Yeah.
us all banding together as an industry rather than operating in separate silos.
100%. Rising tide lifts all boats. And I openly mock when I see in the promotional products Facebook page when someone takes a pen because they can't find it and they do a very poor job in Microsoft Paint, kind of deleting the logo, but you can tell it's State Farm. Like, hey, no shit, we all know State Farm buys pens. If you're that nervous that Joe Blow agent is going to use someone else, then you don't have a relationship anyway. You don't have a client. So stop it. Number one. So I love that. When I got in the industry 1,000 years ago, it was very protective and very secretive. And, that's why we have companies like that have something line after their name, because corporate America did not want to be associated with branded merchandise at all. And so we're seeing that very much lift, and brands are eager to get into our space. That's great. And then collaboration over competition. 1,000% couldn't agree more. I've even had people who are direct competitors for me in my service provider market on this podcast, because I can't do it all. They can't do it all. There's enough business for everybody, and we collaborate sometimes on clients too. So it's not just for distributors or suppliers. This can happen in the business services part of our industry too.
No, 1,000%. And like, you know, a lot of the people that I'm constantly hyping up and telling to like get into the conversation are my competitors.
Yeah,
But also like I'm confident in the way that
but they're not.
yeah, exactly. Like, and I'm confident in the way that I sing. Like like it is
They
what it
do
is.
the same thing as you in different ways, but they're not your competitors. I don't look at people who do the same thing as I do as competitors, because there's certain things they do better than I do. There are some things I do better than they do. It all works out.
It all works out. Exactly. Just if you show up as your best self, you know, it'll figure itself out. So that's all. I mean, like I think that, just breaking down those barriers, having more open conversations, and, kind of like letting the armor down a little bit will just continue to benefit us all. And I'm really excited to be a part of that in a few different ways, like obviously with CCX, with Merch Girly, with different things we're doing with SCG as well. And it's something that I'm passionate about, as well as like I'm happy to always like have conversations with anybody who's willing to chat.
Awesome. Awesome. Great conversation, Savannah. Before we say goodbye, I do have to pay the rent. That's how it works. Hey, this episode of Between Two Brands was brought to you by the good, strong people over at Coaster Stone, home of the original absorbent stone coaster. With that combination of stone cold quality, striking decoration, low cost per impression, retail packaging, and unmatched value, David Glenn and his team at Coaster Stone are ready to help you make a rock solid impression with your clients. Email them at promo@coasterstone.com. Why not do it today? Why not? Sav, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. It's been wonderful getting to know you. We talked about it before via email that we've been orbiting each other for a while. Now we actually had a chance to meet and chat, and I hope we do this again sometime.
No, thank you so much for having me, Bill. And I mean, yeah, same. Like, obviously, I've followed Between Two Brands for quite some time now, and so to be able to be on it it's a huge honor from my chair. But also just being able to have like an energetic exchange is something that like is amazing. So I appreciate the hospitality, and anything you need, just reach out, because you're now friends with the Merch Girly.
That's right. That's right. It's long overdue, and we'll do it again.